Hello and welcome to Archaeologists Anonymous. I am your host Sean Silvia, and on today's episode we're covering the Lighthouse of Alexandria. So, let me take you back to around the 300s BC when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. He wanted to install a new capital city for his province of Egypt and decided to put it on the northern coast. Now, there's a number of reasons he wanted to do this. One was that he wanted the city to look back out to Macedonia, across the Mediterranean, look back out to his empire. But where on the northern Egyptian coast to put it? Well, an ancient author, Plutarch, offers a potential solution. So, according to Plutarch, Alexander the Great was visited in a dream by the epic poet Homer, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey.
This is a dream. You can do anything you want.
And Homer tells Alexander in this dream to put his city on the island of Pharos, off of the northern Egyptian coast in the Nile River Delta. So, who knows if an epic poet visited Alexander the Great in his sleep, but he decided to put the city on the island of Pharos. So, in order to turn this island into a connected city, Alexander the Great built a nearly mile-long causeway connecting the island with the coast. And those of you following Alexander the Great's career thus far will remember that turning islands into peninsulas is sort of his thing. So he connects the island to the mainland and builds out a peninsula just to the east to create this natural harbor. And what does a harbor need? A lighthouse. And only a world wonder level lighthouse would do for Alexander the Great's greatest city. So what am I doing here? Well, this Masonic Temple south of DC was actually designed to look like the Library of Alexandria.
Masonic Temple.
Unsurprisingly, it's located in Alexandria, Virginia. So, this Masonic Temple is weirdly a good way to get a look into what the Lighthouse of Alexandria would have looked like. It's 333 feet tall. It was built in the 1930s. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was 330 feet, so around the same size. And that's taller than the length of a football field.
Try to imagine a skyscraper with 1 billion floors.
So, as you can see from this giant Masonic temple, the Lighthouse of Alexandria would have been huge. And this was in a time when most of the buildings were, 1 to 2 stories. So it really would have stood out on the, landscape of the city of Alexandria. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was so tall that the only material they could realistically make it out of was granite, because all the other materials they had would have collapsed under its own weight because of how massive it was.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
So the reason that we can recreate the Lighthouse of Alexandria in places like this Masonic Temple is because we have written sources, and we also have depictions of the lighthouse on ancient coins. So those two sources are a great look for us to try and reconstruct what the lighthouse looked like. It would have looked something like that. So who knew that a Masonic temple in Alexandria, Virginia would have given us a good look into ancient Alexandria? Okay, so this building doesn't have a lighthouse light on top of it, but the original lighthouse would have. It actually had a giant mirror that redirected the light of the sun out into the harbor during the day and had room for a giant bonfire to, shoot out light into the harbor at night. So this thing really would have stood out on the urban landscape. It's this giant structure bigger than most of the other buildings around. It's shooting out beams of light at all hours of the day and night. This thing would have really stood out. It would have been iconic. Sadly, earthquakes hit in the 8th century, then again in the 10th century, then again in the 14th century, and the lighthouse couldn't take all of that destruction, and so it fell apart into the sea. So it made it 1,000 years, but sadly, it was destroyed. So, this lighthouse was really big and really expensive to build, and it took them 20 years. They started in 300 BC and finished construction in 280 BC. Why would they go to all of this trouble to build a lighthouse? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, there's a practical reason. They've got this giant harbor. They need a big lighthouse in order to make sure that ships get in safely. The second reason is that it served as a symbol of imperial authority. because you could see the lighthouse from throughout the city, and it's constantly projecting its presence throughout the city of Alexandria. It was a great way for the pharaoh to establish his power. You know, you could see the lighthouse from all corners of the city. The pharaoh is omnipresent. This symbol of Ptolemaic power, the symbol of Greek control over Egypt, is always on the landscape. It's always on the horizon. The third reason is that it set Alexandria up to be a world city. You know, the fact that you need such a giant lighthouse because so many ships are coming into your harbor sends a message. You know, everyone's coming to Alexandria. You know, we're gathering the world together. This is at the center of the world sort of message being sent. You know, this is a world-class, world wonder level city.
I'm the king of the world!
So it's sending those three messages: world wonder status for the city, imperial power, and the practicalities of having a giant harbor. So that is the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, watch another video. I have been Silvia of Archaeologists Anonymous.